He had nothing, zero, no money, no job, no family close enough to call. And on the darkest night of his entire life, he walked past a tiny shop window and found one piece of paper. That paper gave him exactly 90 days, and what he did with those 90 days. Nobody saw it coming, not the people around him, not even him. His name was Daniel, 29 years old. And his life hadn't just fallen apart slowly. It had collapsed fast all at once, like a building that looks fine from the outside, until suddenly it isn't. One morning he had a job. By that evening he didn't. His mother moved to another city, just trying to survive. His father had been gone for years. His brothers had stopped calling, not out of hate, but out of sheer exhaustion. Everyone in Daniel's world had run out of energy to hold things together. And Daniel, the youngest, the one everyone used to look out for, found himself completely alone with nobody looking out for him at all. He ended up in a tiny room, a room that cost almost nothing because it was worth almost nothing. One bed, one light, one door he locked every night, not because he feared someone breaking in, but because he couldn't stand the thought of anyone seeing how he was living. No job, no savings, no plan, just four walls and a mind that had started convincing itself this was forever. And that's the most dangerous place a human being can end up. Because when you believe something is forever, you stop fighting it. Daniel stopped fighting. He stopped applying for work. He stopped going outside. He stopped calling anyone. He just existed, day after day, like a man who'd already given up but was still breathing. But then one night, everything cracked open. He went for a walk. No reason, no destination. Just needed air because that room felt like a cage. The streets were empty. The shops were dim. And he passed one small store he'd walked past 100 times before. But this time, something caught his eye. A small piece of paper, torn, stuck to the glass like someone had left it there without even thinking. And in plain handwriting were just a few words: 90 days. That's all you need. 90 days to decide who you're going to become. Daniel stopped. He read it once, then twice, then a third time, and something happened inside his chest. Not a big dramatic feeling, just a crack. A tiny crack in something that had been sealed shut for a very long time. And through that crack, one single thought slipped in. What if? What if 90 days is actually enough? What if I actually try? He went home, sat on that bed, and did something he hadn't done in months. He made a decision. He grabbed a piece of paper, wrote the number 90 on it, and stuck it right on the wall across from where he slept. So the very first thing he'd see every single morning was that number. That was his deadline. That was his fight, and it started tomorrow. Day one wasn't dramatic. He woke up, looked at the number, and got up. That was it. But understand something, for a man who had spent weeks lying in that bed doing absolutely nothing, getting up and stepping outside wasn't small. It was the hardest thing he'd done in months. Because every voice inside his head was screaming, "What's the point?" And for the first time in a long time, he answered back. He said, "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." By day 8, he spotted a notice board outside a small shop. Just show up. 3 words. Just show up. And something about those 3 words felt like they'd been written specifically for him. Day 10, he walked through those doors. And the man running the place, Marcus, didn't ask where he came from. Didn't ask what he'd lost. He just looked at Daniel and said, "We're building things today. Come join us." That was it. No speech, no ceremony. Just an open door. Daniel's hands didn't know what they were doing at first. He cut wrong. He measured wrong. He held tools the wrong way. But Marcus never criticized him, not once. He'd walk over quietly, calmly, show him the right way with his own hands, and then step back. And on day 12, something small came together under Daniel's hands for the first time. And Marcus nodded. Just one nod. But that nod hit Daniel harder than any compliment he'd ever received. Because it was unhanded to him. It was earned. By day 17, Marcus connected Daniel with Sarah, a woman who ran a small food stand 2 streets over. She needed help setting up supplies every morning before 5 a.m. Daniel said yes without hesitation. The next morning he was there at 4:30, carrying boxes in the dark. The work was invisible. Nobody saw it. But when Sarah handed him that first payment at the end of the week, Daniel held it in his hand and felt something shift that he couldn't explain. It wasn't just money. It was proof that he could do something. Proof that someone was willing to pay him for his time. Proof that he wasn't useless. And for a man who had spent months believing that that's exactly what he was, that proof was worth more than the money itself. By day 28, a woman named Ruth walked into the community center. She ran a small business, handmade household goods, and she was drowning. A massive corporation had moved into the neighborhood. Same products, way lower prices. Ruth had already lost more than half her customers in 10 days. The business wouldn't survive the month. Marcus had told her about Daniel. She watched him work for 15 minutes without saying a word. Then she walked up to him and said, "I need someone exactly like you. Not next week, today." The old voice came back instantly. Clear. "You're not ready. You'll fail. You always fail." And for 1 second, Daniel almost listened. Almost walked away, the way he'd walked away from everything before. But he didn't. He looked at Ruth and said, "Yes." One word. And that one word became the door through which his entire life walked into a new direction. Working with Ruth was nothing like working with Marcus. Marcus was patient. Ruth was not. She expected things done right, done fast, and done without excuses. There were moments, plenty of them, when Daniel wanted to quit. When that old familiar voice whispered, "This is too hard. You're not built for this." But one evening, after a bad mistake that cost them hours of work, Ruth sat down beside him and said something he never forgot. The people who fail in life aren't the ones who lack talent. They're the ones who stopped before anyone could show them what they were actually capable of. You haven't stopped. So don't stop now. He didn't stop. By day 60, a corporate giant had moved in, and Ruth's business was in free fall. Daniel stood up, looked her in the eye, and said, "They can beat us on price. They can beat us on speed. But they cannot beat us on one thing, the truth. The real story behind this business, who built it, why it matters, and who in this neighborhood has the power to keep it alive." What he did next was the hardest thing he'd ever done. He knocked on door after door and told people Ruth's story, who she was, what she'd built from nothing. Men didn't let him finish his sentence. He stood on empty doorsteps with that old pull dragging at him. "See, no one cares. You're wasting your time. You're still nothing." But every single time that pull came, Daniel did something different than he'd ever done before. He took a breath. And he knocked on the next door. By day 72, customers started coming back to Ruth's shop. Not just to buy, to talk. To tell Ruth they'd heard about Daniel, about the doors he'd knocked on, about the fight he was putting up for her. They said they wanted to support her not just because the products were good, but because the story behind those products was real. And in a world full of cheap, mass-produced everything, real had become the most powerful thing of all. By day 82, Ruth's numbers were climbing. The big corporation was still there. They didn't disappear. But something had shifted. The neighborhood had made a choice. A quiet, collective, unstoppable choice to stand behind the woman who had built something real. On day 85, Daniel sat with Marcus in the same corner of the community center where he sat on day 10. Everything about him was different now. And Marcus looked at him and said, "You know what changed, Daniel? You didn't just find a job. You didn't just make money. You became someone that other people believe in. Nobody taught you that. You built it yourself, one day at a time." On day 90, the last day, Daniel didn't celebrate. He didn't stop. He went to work. He showed up at the community center. He spent time with his people. And that evening, Ruth sat him down and told him she wanted him to be her partner, not an employee. a real equal partner in everything she'd built. He said yes, the same one word, yes. But this time, that yes wasn't a blind step into the dark. This time, it was the result of 90 days of proving he was exactly the right person to say it. Today, Daniel still wakes up and faces the same world. The same streets, the same sky. Nothing outside changed. But the person facing it is completely different. He faces it as someone who knows what it feels like to have nothing, who knows what it feels like to believe he is nothing, and who knows more than anything that both of those things were lies. Lies the world told him, lies he told himself. Lies he almost believed forever, but 90 days proved them wrong. And here's the truth this whole story is really about. It isn't about talent. It isn't about luck. It isn't about being special or chosen or different from everyone else. It's about one thing. One single thing, the decision to keep going, to get up one more time, to knock on one more door, to try one more time, even when everything inside you is screaming stop. Even when the world has given you every reason to believe that trying is pointless, the decision to keep going anyway. That is the only thing that separates the people who make it from the people who don't. Not talent, not connections, not money. Just a decision, made once and then made again every single day for 90 days. So if a man with no money, no support, no one in his corner could completely change his life in 90 days, just by making that one decision and following through on it, think about what you could do. Think about what's sitting inside you right now that you haven't touched yet. Think about what's possible for you, tonight, tomorrow morning. Not next month, not someday, right now. You don't need to be ready. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start. And then keep starting every single day until those 90 days are done. And by then, you won't be the same person who began. Daniel wasn't special. He didn't have connections or luck or a head start. He had nothing. And he turned nothing into everything. Not because the world gave him a chance, but because he decided to take one. And that same choice is available to you. Right now, today. If this story hit home, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it right now. Someone who's staring at a closed door and doesn't know it only takes one knock to change everything.